She was so good in her 1v1 defensive moments as a midfielder. We saw her really take control of that back line.
We have brought players in that are going to do that. And then if we're going to do that, then let's do it. Let's not just be so scared of what the public's going to think if we don't bring home a trophy, if we don't win every game. We're building for greatness. And through that, you're going to have stumbling blocks and you're going to fall down and you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to learn from it.
Between Bodie and Witte, Bay FC picked up in my opinion, two of the best players you can pick up in the expansion draft. Hello and welcome back into Straight from the Pitch. It's been a while since we've been here, but we're super excited since we are in an international break for the NWSL. Alongside Scotty Schweitzer, I'm Anna Witte. Two new teams have joined the league this season, and there's been a lot of new international players, some rookies that have made a big leap into the league to start. But before we get started, Scotty, boiler up. Let's go.
We're playing with house money. We're playing with house money.
Exactly.
We're good.
I love it.
You got it. It's crazy here. It's crazy.
My dad's flying out tomorrow to go to the game because my dad's a Boilermaker. So and it's a Big Ten school, so I got to support my Purdue. But obviously I grew up and I know
here's my
NC State fans are going crazy.
NC State prediction. If Zach Edey plays on Burns, I think we win.
Oh,
but I don't think Edey will. I don't think Edey will defend Burns.
Edey. Get it right.
I think he'll defend Diarra. Because if he plays against Burns, he'll get in foul trouble because it's a different type of player that he doesn't usually play against.
But I mean, I still think he's played against players of the same stature this season in the Big Ten.
No one is DJ Burns' stature.
That's true.
I'm saying like, he's hard because it's like he's hard to play lengthwise and size. His girth is ridiculous. Like you can't get to his shot and then he's a lefty. So it's like he gets people in foul trouble so easy. And his footwork is ridiculous. He's like a ballerina out there.
Just like you said,
but who knows? Well, again, house money. Money. Best team in North Carolina.
I did cover DJ Burns when he was at Winthrop, and I will say he was super stand-up guy. Like always enjoyed talking to him. He's very soft-spoken, but definitely really well deserved to be in this position that he's been. That's what the transfer market gets these kids, is these kind of Cinderella-esque stories.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Crazy. I just had to start the show with that. Now we can dive in to the NWSL. And if nobody knows what we're talking about, it's the Final Four happening this weekend in Phoenix. Purdue's taking on NC State on the men's side of the game. Scotty went to NC State.
NC State's women is also in the Final Four. I mean, that's just kind of cool. That's just kind of cool we can have.
Calm down over there. Maybe we shouldn't have done the show this week. Maybe we should have started next week.
Come on, Pat.
All right, so NWSL has two new additions. Bay and Utah Royal are both 1-0-2 to start the season. The Royals beat the Courage, but they lost to Chicago and Washington, where Bay beat Angel City in week 1. But since then, they've lost to Washington and to Houston in their home opener, which was a massive defeat for them. But Bay had a sellout last week against Houston. 18,000 people attended that game. It was the largest crowd of any women's professional sporting event in the Bay Area. So really cool to see how much they've impacted already. It's a former player leading Utah with Amy Rodriguez and a pretty experienced player and Albertine Montoya, who is leading this Bay side. But Scotty, how have you seen these two sides impact the league from an on the field standpoint, but also off the field standpoint?
Real quick, Albertine Montoya went to NC State.
Calm down, okay?
So I think both teams have they've both looked good, but they've also both looked like expansion teams at times, and you expect that coming into this league, coming into an environment where you're not just learning how you're going to play the tactical style of your team and the philosophy of your team, but you're setting a culture. You as the players, you as the coach, you as the staff, you're setting the culture of what your club's going to be. And I think both clubs are doing a good job and have good leaders in their coaches of what they're trying to implement and become. Now, the impact on the league, man, I think watching the first 3 weeks, this is just my opinion. There's good soccer. It is not as good quality as I thought last year, and that's not even at the end when everybody's
Really?
at their prime.
Why? Wait, why?
I think, yeah. So don't get me wrong or misconstrued me. I think there's way more quality in the league, but there has been such a big mix up and moving players around and new coaches, and there's so much new that every team seems to be. Chicago is a shell of what they were last year, a shell of what they were. How much better they are already. Washington, and there's still people are making Bachman's coming into the league to go to Houston. Houston's made changes. They look different. They look like, hey, we got a chance this year. There's organization within us. You have the Lacey Santos, I think, right? That's her last name. The Colombian player coming across. She's going to go to Washington. She was playing, I'm pretty sure, at Atletico Madrid. So, like, here you can see that Barcelona movement, the knowledge of players in Europe coming over, the European players that either are coming in as subs or starting games. You can see the quality, but then the understanding within each team of how players play and what players play like, and the philosophy of how we're going to play and how the tactics now have to change from last year to this year. Angel City not having Savannah there, and they're playing in San Diego, playing a different. McCaskill's making San Diego look a little bit different. Like, so everybody's even though there's these two new expansion teams, because the league is as small as it is number wise, or was, it affected every single team across the board. So like the league is not as clean and as crisp as it was last year, but you can see where it's going and what's going to happen to the league. And that, as a fan, you should be super excited about. And then with the fan bases coming in, and I see it here, and I know as a player, man, when you're selling out stadiums, you're getting a good game. And you're probably getting it from both teams. So like that Houston San Fran game should be no shock to anybody that Houston wouldn't quit, kept coming. You're playing in front of 30-something thousand fans. You want to impress. So that's the kind of league that we're starting to see. The fans are coming out. Kansas City, good God, are hot. But how could you not be hot playing in that stadium with all those fans? And they're all going crazy, and the celebrations. And I think that's what we're seeing is this league is, man, does it, when it makes a move, and it goes for it hard. And it's a good thing for us as fans.
It really is. I think Bay and Utah have done a great job, both in their individual markets. Like the way the Royals fans have showed up already has been really fun to see. I think from a field standpoint with Utah, Amani Dorsey going down, she had an Achilles injury last week. She was a player who took a mental health break last season. She was a big leader. I think she was a big number for them on that back line, a team that's still new, trying to figure things out. Really sad to see her go out with that injury. But on the positive, Ali Sitnor had an amazing goal against the Courage, and she was the #1 overall draft pick this past season. So she's already off to a good start with this Utah side, looking really comfortable. And I think Coach Rodriguez understands this is a team, and a league that you're not going to come out guns a-blazing necessarily every single game. You're going to take your knocks and you're going to try and figure things out. We're only 3 games into the season, but I still think we've seen a little bit of progression. For Bay, definitely more progression. Angel City, even the team themselves, we talked to Coach Montoya before that game, and even Emily Menges, the center back, said, between Angel City and the Washington game, we got better, even though we lost that second game. And playing against Houston, where they went up at halftime and then to fall 3-2, I think they're going to learn a lot in this, international break of their mentality and how they kind of work themselves back into the season. But all those international players going to the Bay, I mean, Asisato Swala, Rachel Kundananji, who had that goal for Bay at the end of the game, plenty of Princess, she subbed on and got a few minutes as well. There's just so many different numbers and a lot of international players coming to that Bay side that I think once they start clicking and really figuring out what Montoya wants, what the players in the league have kind of, what the league kind of looks like and how they can mesh themselves into it, we'll see the team start to uptick a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's along across the board too. Like,
sure,
you can see on Utah and Bay, they play like their coaches played. Bay's a lot about offense, getting forward, getting there, and Utah's about grit and don't give up and fight for each other and work, and that's the demeanor of their
Rodriguez.
coaches. Right, that's their demeanor. But you also see across the board, like I was saying, is there's been a lot of goals. There's been a lot of late goals. There's been so like you can see where like teams are still learning each other, players are still learning each other. The defensive, some of the goals they're great goals, but like the buildup is simple little mistakes of positioning and understanding angles with each other and how we play to each other. And that's like I said, that's to be expected with 22 internationals, in the league, 24 before the season's even really kicked off, and 2 are coming soon. And then you have all the free agents that went places like, and I'm telling you what, I would not want Bodie not to be on my team. I think that she makes these games, she makes teams click. Just the way she plays, and when you watch her out there, it's like it's something that we teach as coaches at next level is like your job when you show up is to make everybody better. If everybody's doing that, like my job is to make you better, not to make me better. It has nothing to do with me. And if you do that towards me and to the next player, then we got something special. And wherever she learned to play, or by her
Duke.
parents,
Duke, Scotty.
we beat
You're
them
going to cheer for a Duke
we
player?
beat them. We beat them. We
That's
beat
fair.
them.
That's fair.
But like just watching her, she's like that was a really big smart pickup, not just because of her quality of play, but just what she brings to a team, what she means to a team. She's an engine, she's a spark plug. She'll do defensive work, she'll do offensive work. If it's better for her to play a different position, for you to play a position to help the team, she does it. Like she's so happy for the team, the player, when good things happen. And it's a joy to watch because you can see it starting to creep in every sport where it's all about me. It's all about, what can I get? What can I get? And that's just the nature of the beast. That's just where maybe social media has brought us, but that's just where players a lot of times are right now. So she's a breath of fresh air, and then an important piece to that puzzle of any team. Like I said when she left, it's going to be a bad miss for the Courage not having her.
You hit the nail right on the head because everything that head coach Sean Nahas for the Courage has been saying is we really miss Bodie. How are we going to replace her? Without Caroline, we don't have a true 9, and they're still trying to figure out what their offense looks like. But Bodie was that number for them, and losing her in the expansion draft, you can tell in the first 3 weeks, has impacted this North Carolina side. Between Bodie and Witte, Bay FC picked up in my opinion, 2 of the best players you can pick up in the expansion draft because of their versatility, their talent. They're still really young, so they've got a ton of time, but they still have that experience. Witte made, a massive impact on that Kansas City side, but she can play 2 different roles. She can play the 6, the center back, and to go on to your point, Bodie's a player who can just do everything, but she also is a selfless player, and she's playing with a player like Oswala, who plays a little bit more selfish. So it's that good counterbalance to that international coming in.
Perfectly said. It's sometimes you're the yin and yang of each other to make the game work, the team flow. I think when they did their expansion draft pickup stuff, I think it just seems to me that character might have been their number one asset that they were looking for, not just solely talent. Granted, you can't just have character and be a terrible player. You got to have character. I think that was their number one requirement that they were looking for because they're going to build something special and make it last. And when you look at their ownership group, there's a lot of character there. You see it. And I think that's what we're seeing from Bay right off the bat. Their uniforms are, classy and simple, and it's more about what the team means and what we mean to the community and how we play. And that's what I got from Bay watching them. Like let's say if I was not even a fan of soccer, I turn that on, I'm like, okay, this might be my team. Like I like the way they approach the game. I like the way they go after the game. They're not just they're not just playing not to lose. They play to win. They play for the fans. They play for each other, and they play an attractive attacking brand of soccer. And it's only going to get better.
Now that we've seen the first 3 match days between Utah and Bay, which team got the best expansion draft numbers to you?
I think Bay did. I think they both did a really good job. I really do. And again, like you got to make sure, and you could maybe, let's say I say Bay had the better one. And if you flipped them, it doesn't mean then Utah has the better one because you got to pick based on how I coach, my philosophy, how you receive it as a player.
But I'm just saying,
to me, I think Bay. And again, I've been impressed with her when I started watching her here in Carolina, and we said it when they picked her. That Bodie is a player that she's a game changer. She changes the Carolina wasn't really that scary last year until she started. When she got in there. Now, granted, of course, I say, Caroline MVP, totally deserving in my opinion. She's a key to that part, but like she was what she was, but not the same without Bodie playing. And then when Bodie finally came back from her injury, got into she was the 9. Okay, now we know it. Then they started to really click and get after it and go. And then, okay, playoffs come along, that kind of stuff comes, and we've seen enough film, and okay, we're going to adapt to it. And okay, so it kind of sprinkles down a little. Then Caroline gets hurt. But to me, I think what Bay did was the better expansion draft pickups to me, in my opinion. And I don't think that means Utah did anything bad or anything.
No.
I think Bay was that they were just just a notch, just a little bit above. They had a plan. They went for their plan, and their plan came to fruition.
Right. And I also think to the credit of Bay, Montoya has been in the NWSL as an interim head coach. She knows the league, and obviously Rodriguez has played, but she's never been a head coach. And I
I
think
think
that team has
he
just
was
trying to
also a
figure things
youth
out.
national team coach.
Right. Right.
So like he knows personalities, and you can get a good read on a player. I always feel when they're a little bit younger because they're a little bit more true and honest to themselves and don't
Yeah.
know when to bite their tongue always. So you get some good information, and then as they grow, yes, they mature and do, but there's still their character never really changes from who they were when they were younger when he was coaching them. So he had that to fall back on also, I feel.
Before we move on to our favorite players that we've seen in the first 3 weeks, has there been a matchup or a game that you've enjoyed the most so far? And if so, why?
Um
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I feel like we've seen a
yeah, I
lot of
like
good games.
I don't know. I like the Bay Houston game just because
Yeah,
of as a
let's
as a neutral. As a neutral, I like that game. That one was
right.
captivating. Um, the last Portland game, that was excitement, and
Against Racing Louisville.
yeah, it was good. Louis, you can see these teams starting to take shape. Portland to me is still the same animal. That's so that culture is so set. But Louisville, you can see the changes they have made. Their coaching change, their philosophy is different, and the way they approach the games seems a bit different. But those two games stand out as just super exciting as far as the play on the field. And the first Kansas City game was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I called both that one and the Houston Bay game for the international audience, if you're one of our international viewers. That I think we could talk about the Houston Bay game for a little bit because Bay started really strong. Like even Montoya said, they really wanted to suffocate Houston's back line because Houston really struggled with their press. They didn't have their back three set until that second game when Sophie Schmidt moved back. And I think they really put Houston on their heels, but Houston was able to kind of break out of that press. The second half is what really changed the game with um, Diana Ordonez getting a brace in that game. She kind of figured out what works for her in that Houston offense. What do you think the Bay side could have done in the second half a little bit differently to hold on to that lead?
So I think Bay kind of came out thinking, okay, we got it. We're the better team. They're flustered and they're confused because they're playing that back three with Schmidt, who's really a midfielder. But listen, I'm telling you, and I don't know the coach's name. I know he's new, the Houston
Fran
coach.
Alonso, let me tell
I
you,
want to play for
he's
him.
the
I
nicest,
want to
coolest guy
play
ever.
for him. Well, you can see and I'm going to get into it as we talk a little bit about the league and
Yeah.
everything. But like these Europeans, and it's not that we don't have it as Americans. We have it. We don't understand that it's almost okay. The passion and the excitement that they bring to a game, it comes across as I don't know, rude sometimes, but it's not to be taken that way. It's just like head coaches in Europe, a lot of them, and older school coaches, they're not just head coaches, they're fans of the players, they're fans of the club, they're fans of the fans, the excitement, they feed off of the whole environment themselves. So like him playing that his style, I don't know that Houston's going to be great, good, bad, terrible, I don't know. But man, they're going to want to show up every day and play for that guy. And because they know, like, he believes in them. I'm going to a 3-back. We're going to press. We're going to play. We're going to go with, we have these offensive players. We have these dynamic, skillful, enjoyable players to watch. Then that's what we're going to do. And we're going to go for it. And if he reminds me of my coach at NC State, both Final Fours. He reminds me of Tarantini, where his philosophy was, if they score 7, we'll score 8. Like that, like, and I'm a defender, and I don't believe all of that, but like, to be able to have that behind you and know that that's what we're allowed to play like I can take risks, I can go for it, I can move forward, I can become a center back that's a center mid that maybe slips high up to the 10 role and then slide back, and we're all covering, because that's what Houston looks like they're trying to adapt into and play, and they don't care where they're playing out of. They'll play out of the back, they'll play out of the 18, they'll play in the corners. That they're not scared to play. And then they must have went in the locker room and went right where we want them. Right where we want them. Because the second half was a completely different story of how, and it wasn't like, didn't look to me like Houston changed anything. They got comfortable with it. They took a breath and they said, we can do this. Let's not doubt it because we've never done it. Let's go for it. And then his excitement on the sidelines and the players' excitement. Like, Houston is a team. Like, when I was watching again, I was like, I want to play for this guy. I want to.
Isn't he great?
Like, now you want to defend, you want to tackle, you want to dribble, you want to shoot, you want to block a shot. Like, everything, every play matters wholeheartedly to the club, to what we're trying to accomplish this season for our fans, for each other. Like, it was just, I really enjoyed watching him on the sidelines.
Oh my gosh, the NWSL made a hilarious post about Alonso, and he went into the camera of like one of the social media people at the end of the game and did this funny face. He was jumping on everyone. I loved how the cameras continue to cut to him, because that's going to potentially be the story of the Dash this season, is this new head coach coming in from Celtic, and to really kind of change things up. And he's still got a lot of the numbers he had last season, but he's getting a different look out of these players, and he's making these players feel really comfortable on a Houston side that hasn't been good. They've been pretty stale the past few seasons and hasn't had anything exciting happening to them. Alonso could be that number that's exciting for them. So I think you're right. The storyline was more the Dash, less of what Bay wasn't able to do, but more of what the Dash have been able to do. Amanda West was a player who they started as a rookie in that forward position, a Pittsburgh grad, who I thought she was excellent. Obviously didn't score, but I think she started strong. She felt comfortable. And once they get her more minutes in the lineup, I'm excited to see what she does for the Dashes forward. Okay, that's going to take us into the second part of this conversation, is our favorite players to watch through matches 1 through 3. We've seen a lot of soccer since the beginning of the season, but was there one or two players that you've enjoyed watching? Explain why. Just start with one. I'll have mine. We'll go back and forth.
Okay, I wouldn't say they were my favorite players, because I have, everyone know I'm a Coffee fan. I just love her game and everything. But like as far as players that I was excited to see what they brought to the table, you hear things about them. But my first player is the Kansas City forward. I'm gonna mess her name up.
No, Bia Zannaretto or Timwa. No. Timwa Chawinga.
Timwa.
Scotty, yeah. That was my second one.
Sorry. Okay, but she scored goals, but it's more of her other attributes, like her dynamic runs, how fast she is, like how quick she can do things. So like, you cannot lose sight of her as a defender when there's a forward. And like, I don't know that she is a world beater. I only saw her in 3 games. I haven't seen enough of her to say any, like, to make that kind of, but like, as a defender, when there's a player on the field that could be terrible for 89 minutes and then in the last minute score a goal, like, and that about her as a defender, you have to constantly, where is she? What is she doing? What runs are she making? What side of the field is she on? And when you're doing that, you lose sight of the ball, you lose sight of another. And I think that's what makes Kansas City so dangerous, is her dynamic and speed and her runs and her intelligence in her runs opens up so much stuff for so many other players. And then when you have, and I know she's hurt, but you got Dabinia and you got other players that can play the ball and pass the ball. And then you have players that are feeding off of her that click in those, that understand her runs and then are coming in and off her runs. You got forward defenders getting forward because of it. They become a dangerous team. And that, seriously, that transition or that pickup of her is made Kansas City look like a completely different team. And it's not all the other players. It's basically what she allows other players that have already been there that we already know can do. They're allowed to do what they can do on a much greater level.
Schwinga's had a goal, 2 assists. She was my second player to pick. I completely agree. She's been fun to watch. Like the defensive side of everything has been kind of refreshing for this Kansas City attack. Like they've never really had forwards who get back, but just her pure speed and her impact in the game. Like as soon as she stepped on the field against Portland, she created a goal for her side. She was just a number that Portland didn't expect, and neither have their other two opponents just because of that
And
speed. You don't
sometimes
know
I
what
bet
you're
there's
playing
some
against.
players there's some players probably ain't never seen speed like that. I mean, the
That's what I was
first time
gonna
you catch
say.
somebody, like, you're like, "What? What was that just took off past me?" Like, and then you're like, "Okay, what's my distances? You know, how much room do I have to give her? If I give her too much, then she's got easy passing lanes and there's easy balls into her." Like like you're calculating all this stuff, and when you're not used to the speed that you're calculating against, that's difficult.
It
So she's
is.
going to have a run at it early until we get enough film on her to understand, okay, we're going to do this, or they're going to take sides of the field away and make spaces smaller. But in the beginning, she's she's a handful if you've ever seen her before.
Totally. And I even think there's going to be aspect of Chawinga's game that no opponent can really take away, because if you put her on a foot race against anybody else in the league, she's going to win by a mile. So those transition moments for them could be super helpful. I went with Sophia Schmidt as my number one because we just watched the Houston Bay game. And to your point, Scotty, she's not a true center back. She's typically in the midfield in the six. She's an experienced player, and she's seen a lot with this Houston side, especially last year when they could not catch a break and they could not score a goal. 16 goals, actually. That was it. So they moved Alonso moved Schmidt onto that back line after week one. And that really changed the game for them against Racing Louisville. They ended up getting a tie out of the game. And then against this Bayside, she was so good in her 1v1 defensive moments as a midfielder. We saw her really take control of that back line and kind of will her team because of her body language and what she was doing off the ball, how smart she was when the team had the ball on the back line. Playing against Bodie, Oswala, Kunananji in a game and an environment where everything and everyone is against you. I think Schmidt has been excellent, especially in the last 2 weeks because of the change that she's had to kind of endure, this new head coach and that Bay game in particular.
Yeah, I think Schmidt's she's going to take her a little bit of time, but she's going to be a good center back for them. She
Yeah.
she has all the tangibles to do it. Her game is her technically and tactically she's aware. What's the hard part? And as a player, I usually played center back, and then against certain teams, if our coaches thought the midfield was way better, I stepped up into the midfield. But the understanding of, for me, was opposite of her is when you go into the midfield, you have a little bit more leisure to take a couple more risks because you have four players behind you, you have cover. So you're allowed to take a little bit more risk, where I think we're seeing with Schmidt, she hasn't caught that part of, oh, I can't take this risk. There's nobody behind me, because she still has that for so many years of being the six or the eight in the midfield, that she's had players behind. Well, now she's the last line of defense. And I think once she figures out that ratio of when to take the risk, when not to take the risk, I think she's going to become a dangerous, dangerous player as a center back, because you see it all across the world and all across the game now. If you can get a player, a center back that comes forward and steps into the play into the midfield, it's super dangerous, because once you get by that forward line, that first line of defense, nobody knows whose responsibility is to leave and to pick up her, because you
Mhm.
have to leave your mark. You have to leave your space. You have to leave somebody, which now leaves usually somebody open in the midfield. If your midfield doesn't do it, she continues to eat up space. She gets closer to the forward line. Now the defenders have to do it. The center backs that come out and are dangerous and technical on the ball and able to pass are super dangerous and effective in games. You see it with the Man Cities, how they play. Liverpool, when Matip's healthy and he's the one that does it for us. But there's a few center backs that come out. They are dangerous because no one on the other team knows who's supposed to release and pick up. And if you get a team that does it real well and does it often, you can get you can kind of figure out which player comes off and steps off, and then they understand how to attack out of it. And I think that's kind of
Right.
what's going to happen with Houston, especially with him as their coach. And I think that might be the one negative in her point is he seems that he likes to take risks. So she might have a little bit longer of time to figuring out when the risk, when isn't the risk. And it's going to come between the both of them and the team all figuring that out together. But I
Right.
agree. When you put a center back there with her technical ability, she's going to clean up messes and make him look easy that not all center backs can do. Now it's just reading her angles and understanding that little bit of a change when you drop that 7 yards deeper and you're the last defender now. But I agree. I
Yeah.
think it's going to work. I was excited to see it when I watched her back there the first time.
Right, right. No, I think that was a point I didn't even think about, like those risks that she can't take stepping into that
Right.
center back
And
role.
you can see it. She did it a couple times in that Bay game,
Yeah,
and she did it more early than later. You're just, like you used to be able to do that, a Cruyff right
right.
here in the midfield and get away with it, even if you lost it. Whereas, man, you lose it now, all hell's breaking loose.
Right. Even with Jane Campbell back there. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I watched her against Emma Sears, that new rookie for Racing Louisville, who has a ton of speed, and she matched her in a 1v1 opportunity, which that was where I really started to focus on her individually. So Sophie Schmidt is my number one player to watch. Scotty, who's your number two?
I hope I picked. Oh, I already picked your number two. So my number two is and I'm going to give a little tiny bit of a background on this because I think this needs to be noted. I wish I knew the club. So I live in North Carolina, and players come in all the time, whether to see schools, to train with the Courage, like high quality national team players. So I get to train because I train individually also, not just at next level. Um, to work on body movements and understanding movements and just footwork and skills like that. So I've trained in the last few years or whatever it was. Jaden Shaw was in North Carolina for a little. I trained probably her like 4 or 6 times. I got to work with her. On unbelievable talent. And then recently this summer, probably more than that, 6 to 10, 8 to 10 times, I trained Kennedy Fuller,
Mm-hmm.
who's at Angel City. And I think she's amazing. I was like, I didn't doubt her, but I was like, oh, man, I wonder if she's ready for the pace, the speed of the NWSL, coming basically straight out of high school. And I think she was like, had changed her class. So she was coming out of school early. So she's even like she could have been a high school senior this year, I think. And she comes out and she plays. And man, I think she's done an unbelievable job. And what she's has similarities to Shaw, and she has differences to Shaw. And the same goes for Shaw to her. But they're both from the same club. And the one thing I will say when I trained them, man, whoever is training them mentally at that club is doing an amazing job. They're helping create professional soccer players, professionals. Just their approach, their attitude, their work rate, their desire to be great. They were humble. It was amazing to see how these two players from the same club kind of represent themselves the very, very same way in their mannerisms, in the way they talk, in their on the field. Like she looks like a seasoned vet out there playing with some real seasoned vet at Angel City.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of Angel City just because most of my games haven't been Angel City games. But you mentioned that Kennedy Fuller and Shaw have some similarities. Curious what you think those similarities are because they do play different positions. Shaw's more of a true forward, and we've seen Fuller maybe a little bit deeper in the midfield.
Their movements and their ability to attack players 1v1 and read spaces is really good. And they're very powerful dribblers. Like when they get at you, you don't think sometimes you see a player come out, you're like, okay, this is pure speed. And then sometimes you see a player, this is all technical. They have speed, technical, and strength. And when it runs at you, it's intimidating. It's like, man, how do I tackle? How do I contain? So like because you see it coming at you, so it's a different look when it has all three aspects coming at you. So I think that is kind of one thing. I think Fuller's more of a facilitator than Shaw. Not that they both can't do it, and Shaw's more of a finisher, the end product part of it. And not like Fuller can't do it. I think she scored 7 goals in whatever last tournament she was with the U17 national team in a game. 7 goals in a game, not for the whole
Dang,
tournament. So yeah, so it's like not that she can't do it. She's just
that's not what
she's
they're asking
more
her to
of
do.
They're not right. She's the 8. She's like they kind of play through her, which is like I was saying is like, man, you got all these players on that team, and this is the player you choose to play through, and she's a rookie, and like it's a brand new season, start of the season. Like, here, go get your feet wet. Not like
Right.
come off the bench and see the and it's a club where like, and it might change, but really Kansas City's doing a good job this year, but all eyes on Angel City at all times, like just what they do, like how much they promote themselves, who they promote with, who they know, who comes to their games. So it's just like for a young player to step into that environment in that role and do what she's doing, man, I knew she was good. I didn't know she was going to be able to handle it all like she's doing. And granted, it's only 3 games, but I see no reason why it's not going to stay the same.
That's cool because I remember you telling me when you coached Fuller and how, once she got picked up by Angel City that you were excited to see her play. So it's cool to kind of hear, what she's been able to do and see that kind of similarity to Shaw because we all love Jaden Shaw, who has an extremely high ceiling, and maybe Fuller does too. Okay, last player for me is Sarah Griffith because she went to Purdue. Just kidding. I'm going to go with
House money.
House money, house money. That Chicago player. We love our Purdue grads. I think she's the only one in the league, to be honest. No, I had a player since you took my Chawinga number. I'm gonna go with Yasmin Ryan with Gotham because Midge Purse is out the rest of the season with an ACL. Yasmin Ryan was a number who was more of a sub in the midfield in the first 2 games for Gotham, but now they started her against North Carolina in Midge Purse's wide role. And I'm really excited to see what she's going to be able to make out of it because she was so good in the midfield last year, would really drift out wide. She has those tendencies and she'll be able to do that again. But in year 2, still a young player who's still trying to figure out her footing in this club that has brought on a ton of new talent, who's got a ton of eyeballs on it because of the big USWNT players coming onto the roster. But Ryan looked great against North Carolina, would cut the ball inside, had a few good opportunities for them doing that. But she's my number right now. Why not?
She is another player to me on those lines of Bodie. Like if you're
Yeah,
gonna, she's a player. You can bring her into any team. She's not gonna. She was amazing last year, and she's coming off the bench because of what they brought in, and it's it doesn't come across like it's phasing her. Like she's not pouting about it. She's like, and that's a team where you're right. You're like, that's like what we were saying. Like because of all the everything, the free agency and expansion draft and European players coming over, you're like like Gotham's a brand new team almost.
right.
Like, okay, we just won a championship and now here, try to do it with this team and see if you can do it in a year because you got so many new players. And so now you can change your philosophy, you can change your approach. You're gonna have to based on now the talent you have. And here's a Yasmin Ryan in the beginning, almost you're like, why is she an afterthought? She can't be an afterthought. We got to get her out here on this field. And yeah, she might be your first sub, but like I understand you got to do and it's early and you're learning and you're figuring out your team. But like I had no doubt that she would have found her starting spot sooner or later. And here's a player like it doesn't matter where it's at. Yeah, it's probably going to be offensive, but who knows what this player could play? She might be able to play in the back if she had to. Like, so you're just finding ways to get her on the field. And through injury, this one was made easy for a coaching staff in a sense.
Totally, totally. Ryan's a player who I think when she was at Portland had to learn and figure out how she can get herself on the field. She's used to having times when she gets knocked down, and I think Bodie's similar. When she came over to the Courage, she wasn't like a highly sought after player. She had to earn her right to be on the field, and I think that's what those 2 players really appreciate, and that's what they both play like. So I'm going to go with Yasmin Ryan as my number 2 player because you took Chawinga, who's just been such a thrill to watch. Speaking of the Portland Thorns, kind of an opposite effect for them to start the season. They're now 0-1-2 to start the season. They have never started a season this poorly before. Portland is technically on a 4-game losing streak dating back to, rather, 4-game without a win streak dating back to last year. This being the first time ever, Scotty. Is this a concern?
For me, zero concern. Zero.
Why?
Well, one, I don't think they've played bad. On a lot of the games that I've watched, they've had possession, which is what they do. Sophie Smith's looked great so far, I thought. I thought she's played really well. The only player, and it's still not even a concern, but I don't think she's playing anywhere near what she was last year, is Moultrie. That's the like for me is like they're a little bit in the back they're disorganized, which is you think would be weird because Sauerbronn's back. But the problem was Sauerbronn was gone for so long. Menges was there. Now Menges has got so like you got players who haven't played together in almost a year. So they're even though they do know each other, they're learning each other. Is she the same player? Does she have the same speed? So there's that. They've given up some weak goals, in my opinion. But also, one reason is because women's sports usually handle themselves way better than men's. We don't know if there was anything weirdly going on with the Sophie Schmidt contract. Was it
Sophia
easy?
Smith. Sophia Smith.
It was
There
it
you go.
was it easy to get done? Was it not? Because even though we don't hear it, it's being talked about in the locker room. It's being talked about amongst themselves as players, and that can weigh on a team. And maybe there was nothing. Maybe there was zero to. But I mean, it's still early. Like I said, they've got some different things. They've got some different pieces that they're trying to work out. Sinclair doesn't start anymore. Maybe here and there, but you can see she's getting a different role. Granted, when they came in the last game, I think they made a big change in that game of how the confidence of players stepped up when the old veteran guard came back into the game at the end of the game. But like I'm not concerned about it because they still look very similar to the team that they are. And I personally think they're got to learn this new goalie who is not the same quality of the goalie they had in the past. And that's fine. That's just the way the game works. But necessarily like concerned, like I said, I have zero concern. I think, like I said, they're a machine. They still seem to have the same culture. They still work for each other. They still play the same brand of soccer. Now it's just figuring out. I think a little bit though that they knew it as players. And you can see them press where they normally didn't used to press the game. I think, and I thought she played good, but I think Weaver's they're trying to win games instead of letting the game kind of flow in their direction. But again, like I said, I have zero concern about this team. I think they'll get it under control. I think the international break is coming at a great time for everybody, to be honest. For every team, we'll go back to basics and work on some simple things, and they don't have to worry about the fitness aspect of it so much because they have fitness under them now. Just make sure they maintain it, and yeah, not just maintain it, but like get it up a notch because it's still. I mean, I've had a lot of coaches and a lot of European coaches always say early days, and the process of a season is, some teams are hot early, then there's a lull. Can you get out of the lull? Some start in a lull and come out of their lull, it's all understanding veteran leadership and coaching leadership to understand how to get yourselves out of these slumps, or don't let them get too high, don't let them get too low when the seasons hit like they hit, and
Right.
this one's going to hit like that because of all the changes throughout the offseason.
Portland's game against Gotham was really interesting because Gotham really got their goal from a transition moment. Like it was Portland who dominated the possession. They just weren't able to create anything out of that. And I agree. I don't think there's a cause for concern because there are still new numbers in there. Jesse Fleming playing next to Sam Coffey against Kansas City. Those two did not look great together. And really individually, I don't think they looked great at all. But Fleming's a number who's in that midfield, who has all this experience from Chelsea and with the Canadian national team, that once she kind of gets more comfortable in this midfield, I think she can be a game changer for this Portland side. Janine Becky coming back from her ACL tear. I think there's just a lot of injuries, new pieces to your point, that sometimes it works for teams like Kansas City and sometimes it doesn't work for a team out of the gate. They're still trying to figure out what things look like. Maybe there's a little bit of concern because the giving up the goals is the scary part. You mentioned Bella Bixby, their starting goalkeeper last year. She's out with maternity leave. Shelby Hogan stepping in, not the elite goalkeeper and not making the saves that Bixby was typically making with Portland. And now their back line doesn't seem completely synced up. They put in Obazi, Payne's new, it's Kelly Hubley, who's a great center back, but she's not this absolutely elite center back for them. So I think there are more cause of concern would be that back line and making sure before match day 4, they figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, and that's why for me, those are all valid points. But for me, like the concern part is not there because you have Sauerbronn. You have Hubley, who is a veteran who's going to learn to trust her outside backs.
Right.
The Fleming and Coffey thing is their problem is Fleming is a player that her teams have always and will always play through. Well, that takes away from coffee because Portland's big play is when it breaks down, they come back through coffee. She makes the right decision coming out. So they're not necessarily like back in the day, England had Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. And not only did they play the very similar, they went into each other's spaces all the time. And England wasn't the team they should have been with those two players because they played them at the same time. They should have said, today's Gerrard's game, next game's Lampard's game. And I'm not saying to do that with Fleming because one's a 6, one's an 8. One has a little bit more offensive prowess in a sense because that's where she's been played for longer in her career. I think it's just them two figuring out, I'm going to do this. When I do this, you do this. And then the team figuring out when the ball's here, this situation, Coffee will be here, Fleming will be here. Pick which one is the better option. You have these two options always. Now, our job is to get forward and score goals. Can we do that? Which one of them in these two options helps us do that quicker? Quick, like if we got to go deeper to go to Coffee to get wider to get faster forward, then we do it. If we can go straight into Fleming to get straight through to Smith, then we do it. I think that's the part. But you're looking at like two veteran players, a whole bunch of veterans on that back line, even some that might come off the bench who are going to help in training, who you got to think are getting these 1-year deals to re-sign because they're part of player coaching staff without us really knowing it. They're there to facilitate information in trainings because they're connected, whereas coaches are standing at points on the field where these players are in lines together, standing next to each other. Oh, yeah, on the next one, try this. She's looking to do this. And you're giving points to players based on your leadership and experience. And I think that's, to me, like I said, Portland's just a machine. And if the goalie is a problem, there'll be a new goalie soon. There's enough goalies out there that they'll get a new goalie. And like they just know how to keep winning games, keep being in the hunt, keep being in the playoffs. So, what are they, 1-2 in 3 games? Not a problem because they haven't been horrible. And again, nobody else has been world beaters either. So like they're not running away from them either.
Right. Portland Thorns headed into match day 4. They'll be playing against the Courage in North Carolina on Saturday. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern time kick, looking to get their first win of the season. U.S. women's national team is looking to get a win this weekend as well. They'll be playing in the semifinals of the SheBelieves Cup against Japan. It's a 12:30 kick on Saturday, so a little pregame for our Final Four game between NC State and Purdue. Mallory Swanson and Katarina Macario are back in the mix, in addition as Eva Gattino and 16-year-old Lily Johannes. Johannes plays for Ajax and is listed as a midfielder on the roster, whereas Gattino has played 6 games, 4 starts with PSG. We thought maybe she'd go into the NWSL draft this past offseason, opted to go to PSG after playing her college game at Notre Dame. How do you want to see Kilgore incorporate these 4 new additions? Because I think you can say Macario, who hasn't played with the national team since 2022, is definitely a new addition.
Yeah, I want to see us play the brand of soccer that we didn't play against Brazil.
So what exactly?
I know that we won. That's just like how we kind of like in the past have won games with like just brute force in a sense. And again, it's not that dramatic or that drastic, but I mean like we have players that can play the game, that can manipulate the game, that make other teams do what we want them to do, not just we're just going to run it down your throat kind of a thing. And I think we have brought players in that are going to do that. And then if we're going to do that, then let's do it. Let's not just be so scared of what the public's going to think if we don't bring home a trophy, if we don't win every game. We're building for greatness, and through that, you're going to have stumbling blocks, and you're going to fall down, and you're going to have to get up, and you're going to have to learn from it. And it seems to me that for a long time, the U.S. wouldn't do that because we were getting the results, whereas you have to look ahead. You got to know what's coming. You got to see what's coming down the path, and I think the SheBelieves Cup will be good because we're going to get Japan. We're going to see a team that he has a philosophy, is going to move the ball on us, is going to test us. And if we're not ready to play, and if we're not able to break them down defensively and offensively, then we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle in the SheBelieves Cup because there's quality teams, and that's a good thing. We need to play against quality teams, but I don't want us to go back and resort to, well, let's do this because we know it keeps it close and we always have a chance to win. I want to see us play because we have the players that can do that. Yeah, they're younger. They're going to have to learn Can we sprinkle in a couple veterans? Sure, we can, but like not too many of them, because then it resorts back to what they are used to. And I want us to get to the pages of, this is something new. This is a new style because we can do it. We have the players now that know different brands of soccer. We don't have to play one style of soccer and become um, so predictable in what we're
Right.
going to do and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So, and the good to see some players like get Swanson out there. She's looked great for Chicago. She's looked amazing. Like, my biggest thing is when a player comes back, and even in the 3 games, I don't care if she was good or bad. It was like, did it look like she was favoring anything? And she doesn't. She looks like she's got a brand new lease on life again in the game of soccer, and wants to get after it and enjoy every minute of it, because she knows it can be taken away instantaneously. So put her out there. Let's don't restrict her minutes. Don't do anything like, hey, let's ease you in. Throw her out in there. She's been there. She's a seasoned vet who's an amazing player prior to the injury, and looks like if we get her back in the game quick enough, she's going to be that exact same talent and player that we had. So that's what I'm looking for, and I really honestly don't think it's Kilgore doing it. Because I
Right.
think what Kilgore controls is the subbing in games, and that's been just atrocious. That has just been horrible. It's like you're not, we don't even change the game when we sub, or like it doesn't even look like it impacts the game in any way. It's just status quo. Whatever was happening continues to happen, and that's what I think Kilgore's been in charge of. The lineups that go out there, those look like that's Hayes. That's Hayes's imprint. That's her stamp on the game. And then I'm not at the game, so you're going to have to make your own call. And then I'll evaluate what happens based on what you tell me you told them and based on what I see.
Right. Right. Mallory Swanson coming back, especially pre-World Cup, she gave that unpredictability to the attack that in the World Cup without Swanson they didn't have. Very one-dimensional, didn't have much interchange. I want to see Swanson in that mix with Smith, with Alex Morgan. What does that newfound partnership, in a way, even though it's only been a year, she was injured last April, so it's been a year. What does that partnership kind of look like now within what Hayes and Kilgore are looking to do as it pertains to the back line? Because we want to see these young players and these new players getting an opportunity actually playing these games. So Gattino's a center back. That's where she plays. Do you take out a Dahlkemper or Germa and see what Gattino and Dahlkemper look like, a Germa and Gattino look like together? How do you incorporate a new center back who's still really young?
So for me, and it doesn't seem like they always do this, but like, I cannot believe anyone who knows anything about the game does not think Germa is our number one shoe-in, first person you put on the list of who's playing in this game. You know, like when I was a pro coach, you get your roster lineup, your lineup card, and you got to send it in. And all the coaches used to yell at me thinking I was trying to trick them, because I never put it like goalie, 4 defenders, 4 midfielders, 2 forwards. I never did it based on position. I always signed my lineup card based on who I had to play. That guy is the best player on our team. He has to play. I put him first. It could have been our center back. Then I might have went to the goalie. Then I might have went to, so wherever they fell in my thing was like, so that when you're getting
You're a
down to like,
broadcaster's nightmare, Scotty. I just will say, because when you put it in a list, we kind of know where players are going to play. But when you do that, nightmare. Go on.
well, if you talk to me about it, you'd be like, oh, so then, but then I would have to tell you, then the guys in the locker room be like, coach thinks I'm the best. I was number one. Maybe all trying to get number one on the lineup sheet. But like, for me, it's Germa. Like, if she's healthy, she has to be the center back. Number one person, I'm like, Germa's playing great. Now, where do I go from there? Okay, pick my goalie maybe. Okay, who's going to. So when I have a new player, I know Germa's playing. If she's healthy, she's playing. So put her next to Germa. See how they work together. Listen, Tierna Davidson could be the second best center back that we have. But if the new center back or Dahlkemper works better with Germa and makes the team flow better, that's who you pick. And that's sometimes when fans and people watch the game, they don't really like, well, where's so-and-so? Why is she's awesome? It just might not be the right mix, the right chemistry for what we're trying to accomplish. That's not taking, you're talking national team. You're like talking the 18 best Americans, the 20 best American soccer players based on, and again, there's like, so even that group of 20, there's another 10 sitting that didn't get called in that we probably all think should have got called in. We were calling for coffee for a year and a half, maybe, that she should have got called in. Maybe the time wasn't right. Maybe they missed it. Who knows? But it's like when you're trying as a coach, you have a philosophy and a way of playing that you want to accomplish. Now you're picking the pieces that make that work the best. So for me, when I'm looking at the back line, I know Germa's playing. If I'm the coach, Germa is she is 100% locked into her position, maybe more than any player on the field. Okay, then I'm going to try my other center backs connected to her. You're gonna, if there's 3 games, maybe all 3 of them get a chance with Germa, as long as she tells me she's fit enough to play, because now I know which one of them works the best with her, and that's how we're going forward, because we can't afford not to have Germa on the field. That's
Yeah.
how I would look at the process of going, and almost in every position, in a sense, where you have to do that. Okay, who's my star midfielder I have to play? Okay, now who works best with her? Who's our 9? Who's our 9? Is it Alex Morgan? Does Alex Morgan work? Does then Sophia Smith get on the field with Alex Morgan? Because she's better. Smith's better as a 9 than she is out wide. That's for sure. So are we just wasting her out there? Is that the sub we make? Is that, or is Smith the 9 and now Alex Morgan sits the bench? Is Macario the 9 and both of them sit the bench? Like, now those are tough questions, because if it doesn't work, everyone's like, well, why are those 2 sitting the bench? What the heck's going on here? Like we are not privy to what happens in trainings, how their demeanor is, their chemistry, their connections, their attitudes towards each other. We don't get to see that, so we don't know the dynamic of the picks. And that's the tough part, especially for a national team, because you're so sporadically together that you don't get to see it either so much as a coach. So you're making it off of these short little training sessions that you don't get to see all their qualities.
Germa next to Gatino is something I definitely want to see. And I think at this point, we have to actually see it, because otherwise, why bring Gatino in just to create this hoopla and say, oh, we brought in
Correct.
this new young
That's
player out
my
of
biggest
SG.
problem with both national teams, is we bring in these players, we all get excited, and then they don't play the whole time.
I know. I
Like,
know.
we can learn a lot. We can learn a lot in practice. We can learn a lot in the game. I play with players who have been just horrible in practice, horrible, and are amazing in games. Amazing. They're just gamers. They're just something about practice they don't get. They don't get maybe it's just too much stopping and going. Maybe it's just too much transition from one drill to the next drill to the next thing to the next thing. And the game just makes sense to them. I don't know. I enjoyed both games and practice. That's just was my mentality. But there are players where you're like, I remember when guys came in indoor, we had a player like that, and they'd come in and be like, he doesn't even try. And I was like, get ready for the game. He scores like 5 goals a game. Who cares? He can smoke cigarettes all practice for all I care. As long as he produce, he can do whatever's working for him. Let him do it, because he kills it in games. And there's just players like that. And, sometimes practice with all eyes on me, it makes me nervous as a player. I would think as a youth player, younger player stepping into a new environment. And then you get in the game and it kind of just like, that's when it just becomes more instinctual and we can see how it really flows or doesn't flow. And then that's good to know that you're great in practice. You're terrible in the game. That's good for us
Right.
to know as coaches, as a staff.
Well, and to your point, like, you have to see both, especially Johannes and Gatino coming in. You want to see what they look like in both environments with these players. What is their relationship like? How do they know Smith off the field? Do they know Swanson off the field? Who has friendships? Who doesn't? All those things kind of come into play, especially these national teams, because you only get them for short periods of time. And where it's so crucial right now, because we're only a few months off for the Olympics. So there's a lot of crunch time decisions that are probably going to be made with this SheBelieves Cup. So the semifinal is on Saturday. Canada and Brazil will play in the other semifinal matchup, and the final will be on Tuesday. So next week, we'll certainly be discussing that matchup. Rather, we won't, because we'll probably film this show Tuesday and go back to our regular recording times. But we'll definitely have plenty to talk about in the semifinal matchup. That is it for this week's show.
Oh, I got
Oh,
one
what are
more.
you going to
Just
say?
based on, I think we're seeing it more right now in the MLS, than we are in the NWSL, but it's coming also in the NWSL. The foreign players that are being brought over, it's not just their quality of play that's changing the leagues and the game. It's their desire for greatness that they're like. Last night I watched a little bit of the Miami Monterey game, and there was a play where Suarez made a 1-2 and should have got the ball back and didn't, and the guy turned and shot, and he got a shot on goal, and everybody makes their decisions. But man, did Suarez get after him. Like, get after him. Like, and you don't normally see that because I don't think anyone had the belief or status that, whoa, I'm allowed to yell at you. I've played so many different places. You've seen it with Messi, like getting into it when he does play with the other team and chirping. Like, they're bringing a different standard, and so are the foreign players in the NWSL that are coming over now. The NWSL foreign players, I think they're part of it before they can start really demanding it. When we're going to see it on film is when they get used to the league, because you can see some of the players that have come over who have great goal scoring records are not used to this athleticism, are not used to every position, such a high quality athlete and player. So you can see there's a little shell shock on them, but there's what they know, what they're used to. I can only imagine what the travel is for some of these MLS teams now, the upgrade that Miami's made, because Messi's got to be like, no, I'm not taking Southwest. I mean, I went through the days when I played indoor. I was still flying Southwest when they had the seats that they faced the opposite
Oh,
way.
yeah, I remember that. But bags
But
fly
I'm just
free.
saying, like,
I mean,
I
come
think
on.
that the standards, I think the standards are starting to change across the board, not just on the field, the fields, the surfaces, the stadiums. Look at Kansas City Stadium. And that's where we were talking just real quick before, and maybe I'm going to bring it up when we spend too much, but the VAR's got to be better. Like, now you're getting better players, then we need better standards across. Like, don't just say it's the players that need to do it. The fields need to be better. The travel needs to be better. The scheduling needs to be better. The VAR needs to be better. The refereeing needs to be better. And that's what we're getting now with the foreigners that we're bringing over, because they're not just coming here to finish it out and live in these cool cities and live in the US. They're coming here to play. They're coming here to win championships. They're coming here as another stepping stone to get to another better place. So, like, we're being looked at with better eyes and better thoughts about our game. And it's a lot of has to do with if they're not taking it on the field, they're not taking it at practice either. And that is raising the standards of everything. And that's making the game better. And I'm excited because I always feel like NWSL, I don't know if they have the greatest team in the world that plays in the league, but the league itself to me is the best league. It's the most parity. It's the most exciting. It's from week to week. I don't care if one's playing 14 can get a win. And you don't have that in every league. You don't have that across the world. You do have it here. And now with the quality, and then you're bringing foreigners who play a different brand of soccer, we're going to get one style mixing with another style, mixing with another, and we're getting it in the coaching ranks. The coaches that are coming over, Charlotte's coach is you can tell that's a whole nother culture already started with Charlotte FC, what he's brought in with Dean Smith. You can see it in Houston with his passion and everything. And I think we're going to see the same thing with Emma Hayes when she comes. There's going to be things that she says that we're going to take offense to as Americans. And we're going to have to learn that it's not to hurt anyone's feelings. It's just the love and passion of the game that Europeans have grown up with their whole lives. And we're getting that. We're getting that as a country. We're understanding it. I think part of the thing Haran should have said when she said her point was there are a lot of fans in America because we're so big. So there are smart fans, but there's so many fans that there's a lot of dumb fans too. But that's every country. But the problem in America is I think our dumber fans outweigh our smarter fans. Our smarter fans are the same number of smart fans that are in England just because that's the size of England. We just have a huge, massive country
Right. Yeah.
Let's
right.
but we're not all dumb.
No, no. And it eventually will get there. Like I think these internationals, to your point, have just continued to raise the standard across the league. And that's why we're going to continue to see these teams kind of evolve in match day 4, because this is not it. Like there's still going to be players coming in that we haven't seen yet. I think a lot of these coaches are still looking to bring in some international players. So there's a lot to look forward to. MLS, NWSL, this international break where the US women's national team will play against Japan on Saturday. We've got a ton of hoops games. I know Iowa's playing against UConn. I'm really excited to see Caitlin Clark against the
In
Huskies.
Cleveland. I'll tell you what, I'm psyched that the girls are in Cleveland. I'm psyched.
Well, I feel
It's a good
bad.
city to be in.
The
It's a
boys
good
are in
city.
Phoenix. The girls are in Cleveland. No,
Yeah,
no
but I'll say
shade.
this. Cleveland can throw a party. Like, I think Cleveland's a good place because they're not going to let the girls down. The city itself will not let it happen.
Okay.
It's not going to, I would be shocked. Cleveland is a great, like,
It's a
man, I
great
think they
sports
got,
town. It's a great
it's a
sports town.
great sports town. And they're like, I bet you they were licking their lips when they were watching this Final Four take place. Like, and again, we're again, house money on the girls' side. Like, we're what are they calling us? The party crashers. Like, we're not supposed to be there. We're the team Stanford's, we're not supposed to be there. We're the party crashers. Well, maybe we'll crash another party on Friday night. I don't know. But I think Cleveland is going to, they're always about Cleveland, home of rock and roll, so they're going to use, that's going to be a part of all the stuff but Cleveland is a great place, like, for the fans to be there. There's great restaurants, there's great things to do. There's going to be a concert in town because there's always a concert in town, and somebody awesome. You could see a concert, you could see a game, you could see state win. I don't
You
know.
should be
It's
the
gonna be
mayor
awesome.
of Cleveland, Scotty. Forget this podcast. Go move to Cleveland and help
I live
them
there. It's awesome.
continue to
I always couldn't
promote.
believe it got such a bad rap. I loved it. Kirsten's from Cleveland.
Hey, no shade. Ohio, though, it is what it is. I get it. It's also, we're going into spring, so the weather's better than it was back in March and February. But plenty of hoops games, plenty of soccer games. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming next week, so you can catch us on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts next Wednesday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Have a great week. Go Pack.
Boiler up.